I want to talk about something today that I've never fully spoken about on camera, because this was me only 5 years ago. And it was the real reason so many other clinic owners cannot delegate, cannot let go, and cannot grow past a certain point, no matter how good their systems are, how many courses they buy, and how confident they are. Have you ever sat there and thought, why am I stuck? Maybe why do I feel bored? Why do I keep telling myself I need more motivation? And then the one time you actually try a new system, a new hire, a genuine opportunity to grow, you don't fully commit to it. You start it and then you quietly pull back. You find a reason it's not quite right yet, and you tell yourself you'll probably throw yourself into it next month. And deep down, you already know that next month is going to feel exactly the same. It's not a skills gap and it's not a knowledge gap. It's a human needs gap. And until you understand this about yourself, nothing else you build is going to grow. So guys, stay with me because this video is a little deeper than usual. Now, we often talk about 6 human needs that drive every single decision we make as people. And 2 of those are certainty and significance. And I want to focus on these 2 specifically because these are the ones I see running the show behind almost every clinic owner I work with who feels stuck. The exact stuck I just described to you. Certainty is the need for safety, for control, for knowing what is coming next. And significance is your need to feel important, to feel like you matter, to feel like you're needed. And here is the part that changes everything once you guys start to see it. Whichever of these 2 is sitting unmet at the top of your hierarchy is the one quietly driving your decisions, whether you're aware of it or not. In business, that usually shows up as control and the inability to delegate. Because if your sense of significance is coming from being needed for everything, then handing things over doesn't feel like growth. Instead, it feels like losing yourself and your identity. Welcome back, guys, to my YouTube channel. I'm Nurse Sarah Louise. I built a clinic from my humble back garden with a £10,000 personal loan. No investors, no business background at all. And I can relate to you as I was constantly in survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, certainty, well, it becomes your absolute everything because certainty feels like safety. And the need for constant control feels like the only thing standing between you and everything falling apart completely. So I did what I did best. I controlled everything, every decision, every treatment, every penny. Not because I was a control freak by nature, but because controlling the business was the only way I knew how to feel safe when everything else around my life felt out of complete control. But underneath that, if I'm very honest with you, there was something else controlling me, significance, because I did not feel a strong sense of being loved or loving myself at that point in my life. I'm not talking about being in a relationship. I want to be really clear about that. I'm talking about love for myself, a genuine sense of worth that didn't depend on what I was doing or producing. So the business became where I got my significance from. In work, I was being needed. I was being the one who held it all together and the one being indispensable. And that was the pure validation that mattered. The more indispensable I made myself, the more that need got fed and the more impossible it became to let anyone else in. It was not a course or a strategy that changed this for me. It was my inner work. It was getting to a place of genuine peace within myself, a sense of love for myself that did not depend on the business proving my worth every single damn day. And once that need was actually met, something shifted that I was not expecting. Because then, certainty and significance suddenly dropped down my hierarchy of needs. And that gave me room to welcome uncertainty, which meant letting go of control, letting other people hold parts of the business without it feeling like I was losing my identity. Because reflecting back now, I understand this completely. You cannot grow a business past a certain point of your own unmet needs. If your sense of safety depends on controlling everything, you will subconsciously sabotage every attempt to even delegate. And if your sense of significance depends on being needed for everything, you will subconsciously keep yourself indispensable because some part of you is terrified of what it means about your worth. Imagine if the business can actually run without you. I want to direct this and speak to the women because I think we carry this in a particular way. We're mothers, we're partners, daughters, business owners, often in the same day and sometimes in the same damn hour. And we're so used to being needed in every single one of those, becomes tangled up in being worthy. So we mistake exhaustion for proof of love. We mistake indispensable for being valuable. And we mistake control for safety, when really what we are doing is meeting an unmet need through the business. Because it is in the one place we feel we have full authority to do that. This realization took me a long time to see it for what it actually was. Not ambition, not work ethic, but an unmet need somewhere much earlier in my life, looking for it for somewhere to belong. I want to explain properly how we get caught in this, because it doesn't happen through weakness. It happens through a slow, almost invisible process that nobody warns you about when you start your business. There is actually a name for what happens to us. Psychologists call this identity fusion. And it was first studied by a researcher called William Swan. And what it describes is the point where the boundary of being who you are as a person and the thing you've built becomes so porous that the two literally start to feel like one single thing. And suddenly, you stop being a woman who owns a clinic and you start being the clinic, wearing a person's body and a set of scrubs. And once that fusion has happened, every single business decision stops being a business decision and becomes a referendum on your own worth. Because if a clinic struggles, it doesn't feel like the clinic struggled. It feels like you failed as a person. Now, what that does specifically when it comes to grow and delegate. Because guys, this is the bit I see in almost all women I mentor. Once you're fused with the business, letting someone else do something well doesn't sometimes feel like relief. It feels like a threat. Because if she can do it just as good as you and sometimes better than you, a quiet part of you starts asking what that means about your value. Am I needed anymore? Not your value to the business, your value full stop. So you don't consciously choose to hold on too tight. You don't wake up and decide to be controlling. Your nervous system simply will not let go of something your identity has quietly fused itself to. And the cost of that is not just emotional. It starts to show up in the actual numbers too. There's research showing that CEOs who delegate effectively generate around a third more revenue than those who don't. A third, simply from the act of letting go properly. And yet so many of us avoid delegating the highest leverage tasks specifically, not the small ones, because the small ones don't threaten the sense of significance. It's the meaningful work, the consultation, the team leadership, the decisions that feel like us that we cling on to the longest, even though ironically, letting go of exactly those things is what would exactly grow the business fastest. Now, I see this conversation play out constantly with the women I work with inside the business injection. She'll often tell me genuinely that she wants to grow. She wants a second practitioner and she wants more freedom in her week to pick up her children from school potentially. And then in the very next breath, she'll also tell me why nobody else can possibly run her Tuesday consultations the way she does, why her team needs her in the building at all times, and even why she just feels safer checking it herself. Guys, the funny thing is, she's not lying to me. She genuinely wants both things, the growth and the control. And she does not see that she cannot have both because they cancel each other out in the real world. I believe for women specifically, there's an extra layer underneath this because so much of how we've been taught to measure our own worth through constantly being and feeling needed. So when the business starts needing you less, it doesn't just feel like progress. A much earlier part of you reads it as rejection. Growing the business successfully can literally be on the nervous system level. And I've experienced that, like becoming less loved. And nobody really identifies this for you and shows you what actually is happening behind the resistance. So what do? You mistake it for a capacity problem or a trust problem or just needing better systems, when in fact, it is the far older story playing out through your business. Because your business is simply the place it found the permission to exist. Now, there's 3 questions I want you to take away. Today, I'm not giving you strategy. Instead, I'm going to give you 3 questions, and I want you to actually digest and answer them correctly to yourself. Question 1. When you imagine fully letting go of a part of your business, what is the actual feeling that comes up? Is it relief or is it fear? And if it is fear, what is the fear actually about? Because most of the time, it's not about whether the team member couldn't do the job. It's usually about what it would mean for you if they could. Now, guys, question 2. Where in your life right now are you getting your sense of significance from? Is it coming from a genuine place of self-worth? Or is it coming from a place of being needed, being busy, being the one who holds everything together? Because if it's coming from being needed, the business will never be allowed to outgrow you. Because sadly, some part of you needs it to need you. And question 3, what would have to be true in order about how you see yourself, separate from the business entirely, for you to feel safe handing over the control? Not what would have to change in the business itself, but what instead would have to change in you. Guys, I'm not telling you this so you go away and overhaul your whole psychology by like next Tuesday. I'm telling you this because I spent years thinking my problem was simply operational, that I just needed better systems, better delegation, and probably better time management. When actually, the real restriction was inside me the entire time, and no system was ever going to fix an unmet human need. Your business will only ever be as big as the control you are genuinely willing to release. And that's not a motivational quote. That's simply how growth works structurally. It requires more happening in a day than one person can physically do. And you are one person, full stop, no matter how capable you think you are. Once I found peace with myself, the business did not just grow, it became lighter. And I became able to grow with it instead of standing in its way all the time. So if you take nothing else from this video, take this. Look at where you are gripping control the tightest in your business. And ask yourself honestly, what need that grip is actually protecting? Because this is where your real growth work begins. And it has nothing to do with a course, a system, a new device, or anything new. Guys, I'm Nurse Sarah Louise. This is the Business Injection, and I'll see you next time.